So some crazy political shit has gone down in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, the Asian country, it's tucked into kind of the armpit of India. I'm a huge map guy, and I recommend if you have never looked at Bangladesh and how it borders India on a map, go do that. But
You
basically,
just angered like the entire population of Bangladesh, calling them the armpit of India. You realize that?
anyone who sees it can understand what I mean by an armpit. It's like an arm is going over them. Okay. Have you seen Bangladesh
I have
on a
seen
map?
Bangladesh.
So you know what I'm
no,
saying.
it is the armpit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
But anyways, the point of this video is not to talk about its geography. It's to talk about how its prime minister was ousted after she's been in power for like 20 years. I don't have the exact number on that, but she had been making the country more and more authoritarian, and she was ousted because of protests that started out as student protests.
Oh wow!
But then grew past that, and it was when she was ousted, they were descending upon her residence and like taking things out and burning them.
Oh my god!
And shit. Yeah. So I'll get into the background behind the protests, I guess, to begin.
Yeah.
Bangladesh set a system in place where there's a quota for government jobs that go to members who were involved in the revolution that made Bangladesh an independent country in 1971 or their descendants.
Whoa.
And so that's created a very stratified society because Bangladesh still isn't a rich place, but these government jobs are very good jobs. And at this point, we're 50 plus years past the revolution, and it doesn't really make much sense to be giving those jobs out based on being being one of the lucky descendants.
Sure.
Right. So yeah, at this point, they're being run by an interim government that's being overseen by by a Nobel laureate, I think, by just a scholar, a philosopher king type, I guess, right now in the country. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
I remember we were talking about Bangladesh maybe a couple months back, and we were talking about how they had a big political leader who was in jail. And that big political leader who got jailed ended up winning an election from jail or something like that.
Oh, was that Bangladesh?
I thought that was Bangladesh.
Okay.
Was that not?
I don't know.
Oh, geez.
I don't remember.
Okay. My next question.
Sorry.
It's fine. How does this affect American security in the region, do you think? Because I know we had a pretty good and working relationship with
Bangladesh.
I was thinking about
Pakistan. Yeah. Which kind of makes sense because Bangladesh used to be Pakistan too.
Yes, it used to be Pakistan's DLC.
Yes, exactly. No, but it's as far as I don't think American security, I don't think there's really any implications for Americans. I don't even know. The biggest like global implications that came to mind for me is Bangladesh is a leading textiles exporter in the world. So this has the chance to seriously throw a wrench in textile supply chains around the world because Bangladesh does almost everything. But honestly, and one of the people I follow thinks that it could actually be a big deal. I don't think it's going to, because I think China and India can ramp up textile manufacturing operations pretty quick.
I see.
Yeah.
Do you think that this was a very ideological cause for revolt against the authoritarian, or do you think it was more of just an economic?
I think it was more ideological. For some reason, it's the economics of it was kind of the spark.
Right.
But
which normally how that works.
Yes.
But there was like an ideology based behind it. Like it was more, would you classify it as more liberal, more Western, more democratic, quote
more
unquote?
Democratic. I don't know about Western otherwise. Like I don't feel like there was Western like there was no entanglement that like the West's fingers I don't think have been in this at all.
Okay.
But I do think, especially thinking that it's coming from young people, they want to make sure their voices can still be heard in government.
Sure.
And it's frightening to think that, especially in a country that is developed very quickly economically, like it's seen really high rates of growth over the past decade or two. That's led to a lot of economic inequality.
Sure.
As it always does. And so that means that young people who are coming up, who know that their closer to the bottom end of that spectrum, they want to make sure they can have a say in trying to get more of the pie.
Right, and they didn't really have a ladder up in that system where we're talking about government job quotas and everything.
Yes.
So my last question I was going to ask you is whether or not you felt that this was a popular movement or just a really loud minority. It sounds like it's a pretty popular movement.
Yes, it started as a student uprising, but I do think it became a popular movement, and it involved people because of the ideology, because it's the idea that you want a democracy and not an autocracy resonates with people. During the protests, and even in protests over the past months, Sheikh Hasina, who was the prime minister, had the internet of the country shut down on multiple occasions to prevent them from communicating with each other.
See, and sounds. What's interesting is because Bangladesh is in the armpit of India, and that's like similar to what Modi would do, right? Yeah. Modi would shut down access to India, access to the internet, in certain regions when protests were going on. And so I'm hopeful maybe that the overthrowing of this authoritarian leader in Bangladesh could be a check on Modi's desire to maybe expand his power in the face of a lack of democratic support for him at the ballot box.
Maybe. I'm just hopeful that we're gonna have to see if the alternative that Bangladesh sees
actually works
doesn't do the same thing.
Right.
Because if we always think and hope that there's going to be a lot of differentiation between the rulers that we get, like the changes in leadership. It's not always the case. Sometimes power itself corrupts. So we'll see how it goes. It's still more optimistic than having someone in place that was actively cracking down on dissent in the way that she was. But you also hope that this doesn't impede the country's economic growth that they've had, because that's drawn a lot of people out of poverty in a country of over 100 million.
Right, and I could very easily imagine Bangladesh having this political revolution and then seeing economic negative effects correlate with that, and then be totally ready to go right back into the authoritarian's arms because he'll put food on the table.
Exactly.